Chapter 8 Love Potion. There was the young man with his inhuman beauty and his perpetual divine smile. Even the way he sat on the cloth-draped sofa in the sitting room was elegant. What's he want today? Mau Mau thought. Her cold detachment was not shared by the three ladies-in-waiting who blushed and bustled off to make tea for the guest. Mau Mau could hear them arguing in the next room over who would have the honor of preparing it. Finally, an exasperated Hong-yang made the drink herself, sending the other three ladies back to their rooms. They went with their shoulders slumped, the very picture of dejection. Mau Mau, the food taster, picked up the silver teacup and gave it a delicate sniff before taking a mouthful of tea. Jinshi had been watching her this entire time, and it made her fidgety. She squinted so she wouldn't have to meet his eyes. Most young women would have been quite satisfied to have the attention of such a fine man, even if he was a eunuch, but not Mau Mau. She didn't much share the interests of the common run of people, so even if she acknowledged intellectually that Jinshi was intensely beautiful, she still watched him at a remove. Someone gave me some treats. Would you be so kind as to taste them too? Jinshi indicated a basket filled with baozi. Mau Mau took one of the buns and pulled it open, discovering a filling of minced meat and vegetables. She took a sniff. It had a faintly medicinal odor she recognized. It was the same as the stamina booster from the other day. An aphrodisiac, she said. You can tell without tasting it. It's not harmful to speak of. Go ahead and take them home with you. Enjoy them. I don't think I could, knowing who they came from. Indeed, I think you might have a visitor this evening. Mau Mau made sure to sound downright nonchalant. Jinshi, who had clearly not expected this reaction, looked at a loss. He was just lucky she didn't give him her staring at a worm look, giving her a bun to taste when he knew there was an aphrodisiac in it. There remained the question of who had given him the baozi. Consort Gyokyo laughed to overhear their conversation, her voice like the tinkling of a bell. Princess Lingli slept peacefully at her feet. Mau Mau bowed and made to leave the room. Just a moment, if you please. Do you need something further, sir? Jinshi and Gyokyo shared a look, then nodded at each other. It seemed they had already discussed whatever was going on, and it involved Mau Mau. Perhaps you could make a love potion? For just an instant, Mau Mau's eyes lit up with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. What's that supposed to mean? She couldn't imagine what they wanted with such a thing, but the subject was one she would be more than happy to entertain. Forcing herself not to smile, she replied, I need 3 things: tools, materials, and time. Could she make a love potion? Oh, yes. Yes, she could. Jinshi wondered what was the matter. His eyebrows furrowed like drooping willow branches, and he crossed his arms. Jinshi was a person of such beauty that some said if he had only been born a woman, he could have had the country under his thumb. Indeed, it was held that had he wished to, he could have convinced the very emperor to affirm that gender meant nothing. But such praise brought him no pleasure. Today, as he went about the rear palace, he had once again found himself the object of something like catcalls by one of the middle-ranked consorts and 2 of the lower-ranked ones, even by 2 separate male officials in the palace, one military and one bureaucratic. The military official had even given him dim sum laced with a stamina tonic, so Jinshi decided to forego his rounds tonight and retire to his rooms in the palace instead. He wasn't slacking off. It was for his own protection. He quickly noted some names on the scroll lying open on his desk, the names of the consorts who had called out to him today. Even if she had scant visits from the emperor, it was awfully audacious of a woman to try to invite another man into her bedchamber. Jinshi's list was not an official report, but he suspected they would be even less likely to receive an imperial visit after this. He wondered how many of the little birds trapped in this cage understood that his own beauty was a testing stone for the women of the rear palace. Women were chosen to be consorts based first and foremost on family background, but beauty and intelligence played their part too. Compared to the first 2 qualities, intelligence was trickier to measure. They also needed an upbringing befitting a mother to the nation, and of course, they must be of chaste outlook. The emperor, in a nasty little tweak, had made Jinshi the standard for selecting his consorts. It was in fact Jinshi who had recommended both Gyokyo and Lihua. Gyokyo was thoughtful and perceptive. Lihua was more emotional, but possessed unimpeachable manners, and both had unquestioned loyalty to His Majesty without a shadow of untoward feelings. Consort Lihua, though, now seemed to have no place in His Majesty's adoration. The emperor might have been Jinshi's master, but he was also, in Jinshi's estimation, terrible. He set up concubines purely based on their usefulness to him and the country, got them pregnant, and then, when the children showed no aptitudes, he would cut them loose. In the future, Jinshi surmised, the imperial affection would continue to incline ever more toward Gyokyo. The death of the young prince had marked the emperor's final visit to Lihua, who now seemed as insubstantial as a ghost. Lihua was not the only consort for whom it seemed his majesty no longer had any need. Those women would be quietly returned to their homes at an opportune moment, or else gifted as wives to various officials. Jinshi pulled a particular paper out of his pile. It referred to a middle consort of the upper fourth rank, Fuyo by name. She had just been promised in marriage to the leader of the assault on the barbarian tribe in recognition of his military valor. Truth be told, they were less appreciative of the man's energetic destruction of the enemy than of his restraining certain short-tempered elements among his own troops. That a certain small village had been blamed and punished for something it hadn't done was not a fact that had been made public. Such was politics. Now then, I wonder if it will all go well. If everything went just as he had calculated in his head, there would be no problems. He might have to lean on the chilly apothecary to help him out with a few things, though. She had turned out to be even more useful than he'd expected. She wasn't the only one who showed no special desire for him, but she was the first to regard him as though she were looking at a worm. She seemed to think she hid the feeling well, but the disdain was clear on her face. Jinshi smiled in spite of himself. That smile, like nectar from heaven, some said, contained just a hint of something mean in it. He wasn't a masochist as such, but he found the girl's reaction intriguing. He felt like a child with a brand new toy. Yes, where will this lead? Jinshi placed the papers under a weight and decided to go to sleep. He made sure to lock his door in case he should have any uninvited visitors during the night. People spoke of cure-alls, but in fact there was no medicine that would cure all. Her father had always insisted as much, but Mao Mao had admittedly gone through a phase in which she had rejected his claim. She had wanted to create a medicine that could work on anyone, for any condition. That was what had led her to inflict those ugly wounds on herself, and had indeed resulted in the creation of some new medicines, but a true panacea remained nothing more than a dream. As much as she hated to admit it, the story Jinshi brought her was enough to pique Mao Mao's interest. Since arriving in the rear palace, she'd been unable to make much more than sweet matcha tea. To her surprise, a variety of medicinal herbs did grow on the grounds of the rear palace, but she lacked the implements necessary to make proper use of them, and trying to do anything with them would have attracted undesirable attention in her crowded quarters anyway, so she forced herself to leave the plants alone. This was what she liked best about having her own room. Now she just needed excuses to go gather ingredients. Laundry was a convenient one. She suspected Hongyang would soon see to it that Mao Mao was entrusted with all the washing. Now she arrived at the room she had been told was the doctor's, ostensibly to deliver clean laundry. She entered the room to discover the lamentable quack himself, along with the eunuch who so frequently accompanied Jinshi. The doctor had a mustache that made him look like a loach fish, which he stroked as he gave Mao Mao an appraising glance. He seemed to be wondering what this petite young woman was doing on his turf. "I'll thank you not to stare so hard at a young lady," Mao Mao thought. The eunuch, by comparison, was as polite as if Mao Mao were his own master, ushering her gracefully into the room. When Mao Mao saw the space, surrounded by medicine cabinets on 3 sides, she was overcome by the biggest smile she'd smiled since coming to the rear palace. Her cheeks flushed, her eyes brimmed, and her lips went from a thin, implacable line to a gentle arch. The eunuch looked at her in surprise, but what did she care? She gazed at the labels on the drawers, doing a sort of little dance when she spotted an especially unusual pharmaceutical. The joy was simply too much to keep inside. Is she under some sort of spell? Mao Mao had been indulging this rapture for a good half an hour, unaware that Jinshi had appeared in the room. He watched her with a mixture of curiosity and sheer bewilderment. Mao Mao went row by row, collecting any ingredients she might be able to use. Each one went into a separate baggie, the name written carefully on the package. In an era when most writing was still done on rolls of wood strips, such extensive use of paper was a luxury. The loach-mustached doctor came peeking into the room, wondering who or what was in there, but the eunuch closed the door on him. The eunuch's name, Mao Mao learned, was Gaoxuan. He had a steady countenance and a well-built body, and if he hadn't been here in the rear palace, she would certainly have taken him for some sort of military official. He appeared to be Jinshi's aide, and was often seen in his company. Gaoshun politely fetched any medicines that were in drawers too high for Mao Mao to reach. His superior, meanwhile, did nothing. Mao Mao maintained a neutral expression, but privately wished that if he wasn't going to make himself useful, he would go away. Mao Mao spotted a familiar name on one of the topmost drawers and craned her neck for a better look. Gaoshun passed the stuff to her, and she looked at it in wonder. Several small seeds rested in the palm of her hand. They were exactly what she needed, but there weren't enough of them. "I need more of these." "Then we shall simply get them," the indolent eunuch said with an indulgent smile, as if it were so easy. "They're from all the way in the west, then farther west, then south." "Trade's the thing. We'll check the goods that come in, and I suspect we'll find some." Jinshi took one of the seeds between his fingers. It resembled the seed of an apricot, but had a unique aroma. "What is it called?" "Cacao," Mao Mao replied.